Welcome back, everybody. Josh Weber here with the Big Red Jelly Branding Bros podcast. I'm joined by Mr. Jason Caywood himself. I'll let him introduce himself. I think that's where I want to kick things off. But before I do that, just a little bit of background. Big Red Jelly is an agency, as many of you know, and we've been working with Jason for several years now.
Yeah.
Specifically over our business development team, right? So sales, lead generation, prospecting. I would say new revenue. That's kind of how I classify it. New revenue, but then even that's kind of pigeonholing what you do, because I think about care, which maybe we could talk about.
Yeah.
But so anyway, we worked with Jason, and it's been an absolute game changer. Revenue. I was thinking about this last night, just like maybe you know the quote. It's been out there for a while. It's like sales can fix a lot of business problems.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's I'm very sales, first. And again, businesses don't exist without sales. Now, of course, sales teams don't exist without internal help. Sure. But you got to get out there and sell something first. Right. So I'm 100% with that.
Yeah. So give us a little bit of background in just your experience. Where'd you come from? How'd you get into sales? What led you to where you were?
Yeah. So from Utah here geographically, but my first job out of college was in finance in San Francisco, and learned real quick that's not where I wanted to be full time.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
New
And
information.
in all honesty, what caused the shift was my wife and I, we both had to work in San Francisco, right? Just, it was expensive back then. And we had a goal of her being able to stay home when we started having kids. And so she got pregnant out there in San Francisco. I had a buddy of mine who was a co-owner of a healthcare company, and he'd always talk to me, hey, come work with me, come sell. And early on, I'm like, I don't want to sell that. She gets pregnant, and it's like, maybe that's a good direction to go. So that took us to Chicago. First sales job was there, and first sales territory was the south side of Chicago, calling on doctors' offices and hospitals there. And I was with that company. They moved me to Indiana to run an office there, sold and managed. And in my early days, both selling and managing, I was terrible. Like, not good at all.
Really?
But I liked it. I enjoyed it. And then joined another company that took us to Charlotte. And when I was out there, I became a client of Sandler Training myself. And paid for that out of my own pocket when I did not have the money to do so.
Wow.
But I'm glad that I did, because here we are, all the great things I get to do now. They moved me to back home here, Salt Lake, and became sales director there for 6 years. So I was with that company 12 years. I was with Sandler the whole time. And so 20 plus years now in sales leadership. And then almost 6 years ago, it'll be 6 years on December 8th, started my Sandler franchise, and here we are. So now I help build and train and develop sales organizations. And my stupid saying is, anything, if there's a team or a company that has human beings selling to other human beings, I might be able to help. Right. So from your, like you said, anything that is revenue generating, that's from the sales leadership on down. Those are the things that I can touch and impact.
Yeah. What was most fascinating to me that I appreciated when we first started working together, I don't know if you know this, but I first heard about Sandler Sales 4 years ago, which maybe more. I was at an agency mastermind in Florida, and there was this agency owner there who was just killing it with sales. And I was kind of picking his brain at dinner. I was like, what are you doing with your sales guys? Because back then it was relatively new for us to have dedicated biz dev people. And he was like, you should look into Sandler Sales. And I was like, okay. And then I came back and just kind of researched it. And that was purely coincidental. I think it was Ben who put me in touch with you.
Yeah.
And then I recognized the brand name, and then we
awesome. No, and that's the blessing. I mean, Sandler's been around 50 plus years. We're the largest sales leadership training organization, and none of that means anything other than we've been around the block, right? I spoke at UVU yesterday to 3 different classes, and I always start with that because it's like, now it actually pisses me off when you see on LinkedIn somebody had a sales job for 3 months and now they're a sales trainer. Right? So it's like, the Sandler methodology has been around a long time, been morphed. I mean, we collectively, Sandler, we've worked with every industry you can imagine, right? Every company size, startups, mid-size, global organizations. So that's something I'm grateful for is, when I come across something for the first time, I've got people I can reach out to immediately that have seen it 100 times.
Yeah.
Right. So it's, I've been very grateful to be able to do this and work with great companies like you guys.
That's important to mention, right? Because that was the other thing that stood out to me was the tactics that you train, which we'll get into some of those today, are applicable across all industries.
Yes.
They're just consistent.
Well, and I chuckle because understandably, sometimes when I talk to new companies, they're like, "Well, we're different." First of all, not really. Okay. Yes, there's always nuance, no question. But then sometimes I'll say, "Hey, do you think that we would be able to be around for 50 plus years, that I could work with many, many different companies in many different industries if we didn't make it specific to your world?"
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, yes, I've had clients where it's a one call close. I have clients where it's a 2 year sales cycle. So, yes, there's some, foundational philosophies, but at the end of the day, it's like, all right, how does this stuff that we're talking about up here apply to you? And then I think, just as important as that is each individual person on the team, how can they say it in their own voice?
Yeah.
That is the most important thing. Just be yourself. But it's being yourself now, weaving in these new things that we're learning.
Yeah. You're a sports guy.
Oh yeah, that's
the way I think about it is, I'm sure. I mean, you mentioned you see this on LinkedIn. I see it all over the place because it applies in marketing too, where there's just kind of the trending thing to do.
Yes.
And it comes and it goes. And I feel like so many small business owners get caught in that trap. And I mean, applying that to sports, it's like you think of any championship dynasty team, they're just really good at the basics.
Yes,
right?
two stories on that. One sports related. So Nick Saban, who used to coach Alabama, and for those that don't know, more champions than other championships, excuse me. And I heard an interview with him one time where he talked about when he would interview potential offensive coordinators, right? And he would tell them, "Hey, look, what you've done is awesome, but if you come in here, you're going to run our system." Because in 2 or 3 years, when you're being lured away for a head coaching position, I don't want to have to implement somebody else's system that I hire at that point. So he was so clear about having his system and then bringing in the right people, of course, but bringing them in and having them then facilitate that system. And I have that thought sometimes with business owners or CEOs I talk to, they might be bringing in a new sales manager or a new CRO. It's like, no, you business owner or CEO, you need to have your sales process, your sales system that is set. And then when they come in, they mold to that. Doesn't mean they don't add new ideas. But if like to your point, every time you're bringing a new manager or whatever, you're changing it up, right? And the second story I want to share is, so the company I was at before for 12 years, man, these guys have it figured out. So they started in 04. I joined in 07. They sold for $350 million in 2015.
Wow.
Okay. We all stayed on for a little while. Well, then I left and everybody eventually left. And then they started another company about 4 years ago. And I won't give the number, but the revenue amount they hit in 11 years the first time, they just hit in year 4. Okay. So I heard an interview, a podcast with one of the founders, and it was a industry specific podcast. And the guy talking to him eventually said, "Hey, so you did it this time with this company, and now you've started this company. What are you doing different this time?" And he literally shoots back, "Nothing." He said, "We know exactly what works. We know exactly what our competitors are not willing to do, and we're doing it again." And it just was such a good slap in the face of, why do we get in our own way so often of the new shiny nickel? And I'm just as guilty as anybody. I'm not saying I got to figure it out, but it's just amazing. Yeah, when you find that thing that works, do it. Of course, tweak and iterate a little bit.
Yeah.
You don't need to throw it all out every 6 months.
Yeah. There's fundamental principles. I've really come to appreciate that. And again, it applies to marketing, advertising, what we do. And I have to constantly remind myself of that too. It's like, stick to what works. And you can tweak, right?
Yes.
Get creative. Well, let me kind of get into probably the questions that many of our listeners are asking themselves.
Sure.
Most of them are small business owners, entrepreneurs, startups, etc. In your experience, what are some of the most common problems you see first when it comes to sales, right? They come to you, they say, "Hey, my revenue's not where I want it to be. My sales need to improve." What are some of the first things you look at? How do you kind of diagnose the problem?
I would say one thing that always is pretty standard is when they're trying to make that jump from founder-led sales to now getting a team. I have a wonderful, wonderful client right now that I truly love working with. And this particular company last year hired and fired 4 salespeople. And it wasn't for lack of trying, right? But that is expensive. Yeah. Like that is awful. So now what I'm saying here is in general, not specific to them, but a lot of times what founders are, nobody's going to work as hard as a founder. Nobody's going to care as much as the founder, and that's fine. But they think, oh, I did it. I figured it out. I was able to sell. Like some of these founders are amazing salespeople, like that client, just amazing. But then they have no system to bring in the new salesperson. And they have this mindset of, well, I'm going to find a sales rock star and have them come in and just crush it and just do their thing. That is the worst thing we can do, because if you're, first of all, if you're going to hire a salesperson as a smaller, company, and the founders bring, guess what? You're now sales manager. And most founders do not play sales manager very well, right? Or they just leave it up to them like, oh, there's, so first of all, if you're making that jump of like, hey, nothing to try and get a sales team going, how can you solidify some of those foundational pieces? Like, what is our sales process? Yeah. Right? And this even applies to companies that do have some salespeople in the early days. Like, I could ask 3 people on their sales team, hey, write out what your sales process is, and it's going to be 3 different things. Yeah. Right? So is there, and by the way, having a defined sales process doesn't mean everybody's robots. No, but knowing your steps, like, hey, so here's one thing, like, I'll say at any stage, companies that don't have a defined sales process, here's what we talk about. Okay. I don't care if it's 2 steps or 15 steps. And by the way, number of steps doesn't always equal number of meetings. Okay. But for each step, there should be 2 things. And then people I work with, there's a third thing. But number one, what is the purpose of the step? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Yeah. So, for example, in my world, my first step is a 15-minute conversation. My purpose is just to find out is what they need in the ballpark of what I do. Okay. But secondly, for each step, knowing what are the 2 to 4 things that absolutely need to be in place for us, the salespeople, to be willing to go to the next step. Yeah. Now, when I say us, I don't mean, oh, we're from a power position. It's like, no, we've simply found when these things are in place, it makes that next meeting better for everybody involved, including the prospect. Yeah. Right? A couple of those things. One, again, they have to have some issues that I could potentially help with, obviously. Number 2, we have something in Sandler. It's called an upfront contract, which is simply just agreeing for that next meeting. Why are we coming together? What are we going to talk about and the potential outcomes? Okay. If they're not willing to agree to an upfront contract that we're both comfortable with, I won't meet with them. Yeah. Right. And then the last one is, okay, I have a survey that I have people fill out before my second step, which is a discovery meeting. Yeah. If they're not willing to fill that out, I won't move to the next one. And again, it's not that I'm trying to be mean. It's just like, no, I know that when those 3 things are in place, it is such a better conversation for both of us next time. Yeah. And then, like I said, so those are the 2 things. What is the purpose of that step, and what things need to be in place for you to be willing to move forward? And then the last thing I'll say is for people I work with, like you guys, the third thing then is for that step, what components of the Sandler methodology apply? So, but if people aren't with Sandler, no problem. You still do the 2.
I was stuck in that trap of founder-led sales for a long time, and I think it's dangerous because as a founder, like you said, you are definitely the most passionate. You're usually the most technically savvy of what you do, and I think the mistake that a lot of founders make is this is now the sales process is me, and then you can't scale. Yeah, you can't scale. You can't expect if you do hire a salesperson to be exactly like you, and they need that system. Yep. You know what I mean? And man, is it liberating when you do finally have a system that people can follow and you can elevate above just having to close deals all the time.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too. The part of having a defined sales process, for example, and system methodology, not only is it going to make you better at just selling, period, but from a leadership standpoint, whether it's the owner initially or eventually you hire a sales manager, it's going to help them develop their team better, right? So let's say we're tracking everything and you got 5 people on a team making these numbers up, right? And you see, okay, Jennifer, 92% of the people that she talks to in step 1 go to step 2. Right? But wait, but only 13% go from step 2 to step 3. Yeah. Whereas Tim, 12% go from step 1 to step 2, but 78%. And you can just start to see, all right, where is the breakdown? Where's the room for growth? Yeah. Right? But if everybody's doing something different, and then this also leads to eventually like your prospecting plan. So let's say we get to the end of the year and you've tracked all this stuff, which that's another thing I see young companies not doing, right? Which I get. You gotta, you gotta pick where you can spend your time. But let's say you did track everything. You get to the end of the year and you can do this team wide, individually, everybody on the team. But it's like, okay, Jennifer, she closed $500,000 in business, right? It was 10 deals. So she averaged $50,000 a deal.
Mm-hmm.
To get those 10 deals, she had 17 solution presentation calls, my words, right?
Yeah.
To get those 17, she had 28 discovery meetings. To get those 28 discovery meetings, she had 49 introductory meetings. And to get those, she did this many prospecting attempts. So now it's like, all right, well, if we want her to sell 750 grand next year, you just reverse engineer it, right? So that's where again, I'm not a details person. I actually hate collecting data, but the story that it can tell us.
Yeah.
Right? It can make us so much more educated instead of just throwing darts at a wall. Like, well, hey, next year I want you to go generate this. Well, how? I just work on it.
Yeah.
We look at anybody that's visibly successful, sports teams, actors, anybody that's out there, business people. Trust me, they are not flying by the seat of their pants.
Mm.
The one that was a big eye opener for me, Matthew McConaughey.
Mm.
He kind of seems like a guy that might just flow wherever the wind blows him. Oh, he is so intentional.
Yeah.
He is so intentional with what he is doing. And I guess as I say that word, that's probably something else that I see a lot. Companies of all size, a lot of them lack intentionality.
Mm.
They are just the people that I get to be around that are elite and very successful. They are extremely intentional with where they spend their time and energy and resources. And they're very intentional with what they say no to.
Yeah.
They're continually raising that floor. And anything below that floor, again, from Benjamin Hardy, right, is one of the best guys out there right now. Everything below that floor now becomes a no.
Yeah.
Right? We had our internal Sandler conference last week in DC. Everybody coming around, the best in the world. That was a common topic of conversation. What are you going to say no to next year?
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's another thing I see business owners of all sizes do. They're just spreading themselves way too thin.
Wow. There's two tactics I want to ask you about that you teach that I think our audience will enjoy. So the first one is quantifying the pain.
Mm-hmm.
I've really come to appreciate. Can you talk a little bit about the second one, just so it can sit in your subconscious, will be care.
Yes.
Yeah. So quantifying the pain, what does that mean? How do you do it?
Yep. Love it. No. So first of all, I've never met a salesperson or a company that was properly uncovering their prospects' challenges when we first started working together.
Mm-hmm.
So just at a minimum, if all you take away from today from listening to this is ask more questions during your discovery calls than you normally do, you'll be moving in a better direction. Okay? So when it comes to uncovering pain, and that's not a new concept, but the way we talk about it is usually when a prospect brings something up, and let me speak in my world so I can, if I'm talking to a prospect and they say, yeah, we're not closing as much as we'd like.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that that's not true, but it's definitely not the full picture. And what do most untrained salespeople do? They jump all over that first thing. So in our world, we call that the surface level pain, right? But how can we keep digging to then understand, okay, that's what's happening, but why is it happening? Mm-hmm. And then most importantly, what is the impact, business and personal? So really quick, under the why, in that very specific example, the more I dig, I might actually uncover, oh, you don't have a closing problem, you have a qualifying problem. So now I'm figuring out, no, what do we actually need to work on?
Yeah.
Right? So that's an important thing too, is actually properly diagnosing what the issues are with your prospects. But then from there, understanding, so the business impact is where quantifying can come in of like, so again, in my world, if I said, all right, well, what are you closing right now? If that really was a problem, right? And they say, well, we're closing, 20%. Or, well, what do you think that should be? 40%. Okay, and I'll always question and push, double, what? Are you sure? Like, just to make sure that it's real. Yeah. But okay, all right, well, let's pretend nothing else changed and you doubled your closing percentage. What would that equal in terms of new revenue, right? And by the way, if we're doing this virtually, I'm writing all this out on a whiteboard.
I love that.
Right, so they can see it real time. And long story, so you're just taking them through it. But you'll notice it's not me telling them, it's me asking them.
Yeah.
It needs to be their data and their information. So by the end of it, I might say, okay, so this is, you're saying if you doubled, that would bring in an extra 30 grand a month in revenue. Yep. Now, wait, do you think that should happen every month? Okay, yeah, so 30 times 12, so 360. Well, how often do your new clients stay with you? 3 years. Oh, so it's actually 360 grand times three,
Yeah.
right? And you can just see their face like, oh, and again, I'm not doing this to hurt anybody, but no, let's figure out the real problem,
Yeah.
right? So now that becomes kind of the business impact.
Yeah.
But if I'm talking to a business owner, I'll say, all right, well, that, whatever that be, that almost $1 million or a million plus, what would you do with that?
Yeah.
Well, I'd put some of it back into the business. Okay, what would you do with that? Well, I'd hire these people. Okay, well, would any of that end up in your pocket?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, about X%. Okay, well, what would you personally, so now you're just helping them understand, like, what am I actually leaving on the table? So the real key with quantifying is not only understanding the full picture, but then it's going to help them make a better decision. Doesn't mean it's a guaranteed yes.
Yeah.
Right? David Sandler himself said it's not our job to sell anything to anybody. It's our job to help them make a great decision.
Mm-hmm.
So if they come into that conversation thinking, yeah, we've got some challenges, but now they're like, oh my gosh, I'm leaving 7 figures a year on the table. Now they have more information to make a better decision.
Yeah.
Right? And then when we are able to quantify, it totally changes the investment conversation,
Yeah.
right? Which some people might call budget, right? So if I'm, if somebody comes in and right out of the gate, I'm like, hey, it's going to be 100 grand a year to work with me, they're like, that's insane. But they're going to see it differently if they just realize I'm leaving $3 million a year on the table. Well, now it's going to cost them more to not work with me.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, so quantifying in my world, it's easy to quantify dollars just because that's what we deal with. But it's with some people, it might not be dollars, it might be other things. Right? It might be time they could be spending on other things. It might be different levels of respect they think they're not getting in the organization. But at the base of it all, the most important thing we want to try to uncover in those pain conversations is the personal impact of the person you're talking to, which, let's say you have 3 decision makers, it's going to be different for each of them.
Yeah.
The business impact might be the same, but if we can talk to 3 different people and get 3 different levels of personal impact for each of them, it's a totally different conversation. And now we understand.
Yeah.
I always use the analogy of going to the doctor, right? What do great doctors do? They ask you a lot of questions. They understand. All right, well, your hip hurts. When does it hurt? Do you do things that cause it to hurt? Right? Well, hey, we probably need to take an x-ray, right? Well, let's say I'm in there with my spouse. They might say, well, Jason, how's this impacting you? And I say, well, if they ask, how's this impacting you? Well, I have to do more stuff around the house because he can't help out or whatever. So, you know what I mean? So, if people are really wondering, like, yeah, what does it look like? Think about good doctor's appointments you've had.
Yeah.
And what they uncover with that quantification, which then leads to a deeper impact conversation.
Yeah. It's so good because it just, to me also, it kind of creates more of a collaboration through the whole process.
Yes.
I remember when you brought up the digital whiteboard and we're working on the math together. I love that quote. It's like, yeah, you're helping me make a better decision that's ultimately going to help my company grow and then help me as a person.
Yes. And just one more thing too, like with all salespeople in general, like just take a breath.
Yeah.
Right? Listen, I get it. You might need that commission. You might have numbers to hit. I get it. But if we shift to genuinely trying to serve the people in front of us, which by the way, sometimes means asking the hard questions, right? Which means, uncovering things that are uncomfortable to talk about. But if we do that, and ultimately it's still their decision, like at the doctor's appointment. A doctor could tell you if you don't have this surgery, you're going to die in 6 months. You could still choose to not have the surgery.
Yeah.
Right? So if we just leave it up to them, but just ask better questions, and I mean, the most elite salespeople I get to be around, they ask better questions than anybody else.
Yeah.
Right? They're not slick talkers. It's just, they ask great questions.
You probably have never encountered someone who asks too many questions.
No, and think about this. When I'm on the, for all of us, if I'm on the receiving end, if I'm the prospect, let's see, when did this happen? This is about a month ago. I was a prospect. I stopped the salesperson halfway through to compliment his questions that he was asking.
Wow.
Because it was elite. I said, dude, you are doing awesome. Right? But it felt good because not just because it's my profession, but I knew he was trying to understand my side of things.
I find that too. I'm the prospect on a lot of calls. Sure. And we're looking at new SaaS products, new CRM, new technology. And it's a way different experience if on that call they just start asking me questions, and then by the end, I'm like, this is great. Let me go back to the drawing board and like, wow, this was great.
Yes.
And then compare that to when you hop on a demo call and it's just like,
Yeah.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's
Yeah.
just not good.
A
That's
simple-
why a lot of people still do it.
A simple number for business owners and CEOs that are going to listen to this. In your discovery calls, right, whatever you might call them, if your prospects are not talking 70% of the time, there's room for improvement. Now, how are they talking 70? Because of the questions we're asking.
Yeah.
Right? And it doesn't mean we don't sprinkle in some stuff, sure. But when we're trying to figure out what's happening in their world, they should be doing the bulk of the talking.
Yeah.
And in the virtual world, one of the best things for people that use note takers and recording their calls, a lot of them will show you right at the bottom of the recording the percentages.
Yeah.
You can tell in a millisecond, wow, you talked way too much, right? So anyway, that's just another thing they can think about.
Yeah.
But you were asking about care as well.
Yeah, so
okay.
that's the last tactic I want to ask you about is care. Tell us about care.
Yep. So 4 areas that we look at. If you picture a pyramid, okay, strategies, structure, staff, and skill. And as the pyramid would suggest, strategies is the most critical thing, right? Meaning, what are we going to do to go out there and generate revenue? Okay. And how we help our clients is this model, CARE with a K, Kare. K stands for keep, attain, recapture, and expand. And the question that applies to all 4 quadrants is, what behavior should we engage in and with what frequency to keep our existing clients, to attain new ones, to recapture former ones, or to expand our existing clients?
Yeah.
And if you think about any possible revenue generating behaviors, it's going to fall somewhere in those 4 quadrants, right? Anybody that's growing, you should have a goal of, all right, we had $1 million this year. Well, how much of that do we want to keep next year? Because churn's part of it.
Yeah.
Right. So how much do we want to keep of that? And what do we need to do with some regularity to do that?
Yeah.
Right. When people think about prospecting, they typically go to retain. That's the emails, that's the phone calls, that's the new opportunities. Okay. Another thing I've never seen a company do as well as they could, asking for introductions. Okay. That should be the number one prospecting effort by anybody out there, right? It is the most impactful by a mile. Okay. And I don't mean passively, like putting it at the bottom of an email.
Yeah.
Hey, if you know someone, right? But at any rate, so you got to attain, and that's going for new opportunities. Recapture has 2 components. Recapture is the first part is, hey, if you have former clients, what are you doing to go win them back?
Totally.
Right? If they're the right clients. Sometimes you part for reasons, but so that's one part. But then there's a subcategory that we call where are they now? And what this is pursuing people that used to work for current or former clients of ours that are now at new organizations in a position that we would call them.
That happens a lot for us. Yeah. That's been a game.
Beautiful. Yes.
Yeah.
But people don't do it a lot of times. They're not doing anything about it, right? That's a simple LinkedIn Navigator search, right? So that's where recapture, where are they now? And then expand is, hey, we're doing only about 30% for this client of what we could do. What types of conversations are we having to see if they're open to expanding, right? So some companies I work with, 2 different teams might manage those. Like you might have a team for keep and expand, and then a team for the other. And then other companies, all 4 fall under, one team. But at the end of the day, so we're coming up at the end of the year, right? I don't know when this is coming out, but it's coming up on the end of 25, planning for 26. Every company out there should have a goal for each quadrant.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, all right, so we did $1 million in 25. We want to keep 1.8 of that in 26. Great. We want to bring in 750 new business. We want to bring in 50K from recaptures, or where are they now? And we want to expand our existing client base by another 75K.
Yeah.
So starting with a goal per quadrant, and then what is going to be the behavior plan to get there.
Yeah.
Right? And if you're like a brand new company, you might have all your eggs in the attain basket.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
But as time goes on, you spread out to the others.
I find that most, and let me know if you agree, most small businesses tend to focus a lot on attain and totally forget or neglect, I think, the other areas.
100%.
Yeah.
And I would even say, even within attain, some companies, they neglect the higher yielding activities they could do. Right? People, I've said this story, a company where 30 years in business, elite at what they did, and just working very hard with cold calls.
Yeah.
And at one point I said, how many clients do you guys have been with you a year or longer? They said 400. Okay. I said, how many of those did you ask for an introduction from over the last year? 0.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying stop cold calling overnight, but cold calling should never take the place of a hot opportunity like asking for introductions from people that love you,
Yeah.
right?
You said that in a meeting with us once. We were in a brainstorm whiteboard session, and we were talking about care.
Yes.
And you asked the question, I think it was to our biz dev director and myself, said, how many clients has Big Red Jelly worked with over the years? And it's been over 2,000.
Yes.
And we said 2,000, and you kind of froze. And you're like, have we reached out to these people? Where are they now? Right. So,
Yeah, honestly, like with that number of people, you guys could probably never do anything cold again.
yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying that you're the only one. I see it all the time. So again, if you're a company that has been around for at least a handful of years, meaning that there's work for you to do in all four of those quadrants. It's one thing if you started 6 months ago, okay, attain.
Yeah.
But if you've got stuff in all four quadrants, you should be asking yourselves, what are the hot or warm behaviors that we should prioritize
Yeah.
over anything cold?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Another company I started working with earlier this year, they've got 12,000 clients, right? SaaS company, okay. Same thing. We're not asking for introductions. And we just did some simple math. It's like, oh, there's $1 million a year in ARR sitting on the table.
Mm.
They start doing it, and right away they're booking new clients, right? Because in their space, it's like who they work with. Those people know a lot of other people in the exact same industry, right? So that's my biggest, argument sometimes too, is when I see companies that are so focused on cold outreach when they're leaving other things on the table. Yeah. Like I said, I'm not saying forget cold outreach overnight, but prioritize the other stuff, and then whatever time is left in the week, then do cold outreach.
I remember reading, it's a couple of years ago, so maybe the numbers have changed, but it was a Harvard Business Review white paper that across all industries, it's 5 times less expensive to get a previous customer to come back and purchase than to go get a new customer.
Oh, that makes sense.
So from a marketing perspective, from a sales perspective, because they've already heard about you, the brand awareness is there. 5 times less expensive, 5 times more efficient to do that.
So I heard something for the first time. Again, mentioned being in DC last week at our conference. There's I have a kind of an accountability and mastermind group that I meet with monthly, and we were there meeting one of the days, and we brought in some of the best guys in the world to come and talk with us. And both of them, so these two particular gentlemen, I've gotten to know really well the last few years. Literally 2 of the top 5 offices in the world, okay, and they've been doing it a long time. They both said now they won't even have an initial conversation with somebody unless they have some connection to Sandler.
Wow.
Whether they did it in the past, right? Whether they were a former client of theirs, they did it somewhere else in the past, because they just said, it's just, we don't want to deal with trying to help people understand what it is.
Yeah.
We want to deal with people that know what it is and know the benefit. And they're just like, yep, come on in, let's go.
Wow. Now,
again, those guys are very picky and choosy, and they've earned that right.
They've been around for a while.
Yes, but to your point, yes, I guess it's just like, what's the easier stuff that we're leaving on the table?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, you guys, I forgot, 2,000 clients, man.
Yeah.
Go get it. Let's go get
it. And we are, it's
absolutely. Yep.
Anyway, Jason, it's been great. Thank you for joining us. A lot of great nuggets of truth here. So tune in next time, and we'll keep this ball rolling. Thank you.